Michelle 360. I did that out of order. The title of this live is simply Shake My Head because I just don't even know. I don't even know. So the big news coming out of SM is that Lucas is in trouble, and it's causing a lot of different people to have a lot of different reactions on the timeline. And I wanted to talk about it very briefly because I'm actually really embarrassed about one particular thing that we don't acknowledge enough when it comes to fandoms, and we really need to, because yeah, it just is something that I noticed. And then when all this stuff came out, I'm like, is there a correlation here? So prior to Lucas getting in the trouble he's in now, if you were to go on to Twitter and you were to type up like Lucas black guy or Lucas black man or Lucas is black, if you were to type that up, and you could see tweets going as far back as like 2 or 3 years ago with people being like, Lucas is a secret black guy, look at the way he walks, he has big dick energy. And Lucas has always had this vibe that a lot of people were like, oh, he kind of seems like, you know, he's, I don't know how to describe this because I've seen people do the comparison, but I feel awkward saying it. It's like people would act like Lucas was a former professional basketball player. Like he gave off a vibe like, I'm irresistible to women and everything I do is super sexy. There's one particular video clip of him recording a line for I think it might have been an NCT song, and he like rubs his hands together and licks his lips, something like that, and everybody's like, ooh, look at the energy. And I remember thinking, like, people on the timeline are being super weird right now. Why is it that everybody on the timeline is acting like Lucas is somehow, because of his big dick energy and because of his swag, that's black? You know, and I know this is a conversation that a lot of you probably aren't even invested in at all, but like, there's this thing when it comes to cultures outside of black culture where stuff that's cool gets tagged as black even if it has nothing to do with black people. So like hip-hop culture in other countries, hip-hop culture is like just surface level. Instead of it being about, you know, people putting music to inner city struggles or it being a means of poetic expression in a community that's not taught poetry, instead it's like hip-hop culture is dreadlocks. According to Bobby at one point in time, hip-hop culture was not taking a shower every day. So many things that really aren't a part of the black experience. And so for people to be on the timeline talking about Lucas is a secret black guy and look how he looks whenever a black guy enters the room, his eyes light up. Now here we are at this point. And now all of those things that were identified as like Lucas being a secret black guy are also things that people are using to say like, these were the red flags that maybe this kid has been a fuckboy all along. And we just don't talk enough about the fact that it feels like the attributes in black people that are most associated with like other cultures is like highly sexualized men, hip-hop culture, and then being disparaging towards black women. And I know that that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Lucas, but I find it odd that the big dick energy, swag, all that kind of stuff that he had was probably the exact same energy he brought into his interactions with women that caused him to apologize. And I've seen on the timeline a lot of people saying he's not apologizing because he actually did the things he's accused of. They say he is apologizing because SM wants to get rid of the scandal. And I will just say this, you can't get rid of a scandal by acknowledging that you did the thing if you didn't do the thing. Like, that's not a way to get rid of a scandal. It's one thing if you say, well, this was misinterpreted and I'm sorry if this person thought I did A, B, C, and D. But to say, I'm sorry for my past actions, not even that you thought I did this, but I am sorry for my past actions. You're basically saying you did it. And if you're saying you did it, then anybody coming back and saying, oh, well, he was forced to make that apology, he didn't really do anything, how does that help him? And I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm not meaning it in a I hate Lucas way. I'm just saying, like, for real, if you did it, then it makes sense for you to apologize and say, I'm sorry for my past behavior. I am going to be better. I am going to take sensitivity classes, whatever the fuck it is you need to do. But if you didn't do it and you say, I'm sorry for my past behavior, then it's an empty promise. And empty promises are dumb. If anything, it's almost more offensive to give an empty promise than to give a promise because you did something bad. If it's a sincere promise, even if you did something bad, at least people can think about whether or not they're willing to take the risk of trusting you again. But if you're given an empty promise, you're like, I just had to give this promise because otherwise I was going to be in trouble, then you're being flippant and you're not taking the situation seriously. And how can anybody trust you again? Now, I don't have distrust issues for Lucas because I don't know this young man, so it's not for me to trust or distrust him, really. But the stories regarding his behavior are they so scream, I am a guy who has always been privileged in one form or another. And I'm not talking about like, white privilege, like not that kind of privilege. I mean like pretty privilege. That's what I mean. Like, if you look at baby pictures of Lucas was a cute little kid. He was a good-looking teenager. He probably has always had attention from women and attention from girls and attention from whoever it is he needed attention from. Let's be really, really honest. I watched Super M in concert when they went to, I think it was Virginia. And I talked about that on my channel when I went to the Super M concert. And Lucas's set was the worst set. And it wasn't the worst set because it wasn't entertaining. It was the worst set because he was not the strongest dancer and he was not the strongest singer. But, he was smiling and he was happy and he made you feel good watching him because he was so smiley and happy. It's like watching a puppy. A puppy doesn't have to be talented. They just have to be a good boy. And so, Lucas is not in NCT because he is the most outstanding singer, rapper, actor, whatever. No, he's in NCT because he's a beefcake, because he's beautiful, and because he is charismatic. And so that's why he's got his place. But people who are beautiful and charismatic and stunning to look at, they have a weapon, and their weapon is their beauty, and they're able to take that weapon and they're really able to harm people. I'm not saying that every account that we're hearing is completely 100% accurate. I'm sure there's a lot of exaggeration that's put in there. I'm sure there's a lot of 2 out of 3, but he apologized for his past behavior. So if you're saying that, isn't it true that 2 out of 3 was fabricated? That means that out of 3, at least 1 was real. So focusing on the 2 that are fabricated, if we think that at least 1 is real, we still have to address the 1 that is real. And again, like I said, why would you apologize for something you didn't do? But I say all that to say, sometimes people who are beautiful like this, they can take advantage of folks. If you look at famous serial killers, not that Lucas is a serial killer, I'm not making that equation, I'm talking about pretty privilege here. People like Ted Bundy, he got away with his murders for so long because he didn't look like a guy who could do something like that. And there are still women on the TikTok timeline who are simping over Ted Bundy, who is, number 1, dead in the ground, but 2, not even that fine. The fact that they had Zac Efron play him in a Netflix movie, I'm like, wow, they did Zac dirty. But I say all that to say, I think people are willing to give Lucas they're willing to give Lucas the shadow of the doubt because of his pretty privilege. They're willing to look at him and be like, no, not my baby. Instead of thinking, well, maybe he is capable. And this is a problem that K-pop has always had. K-pop has always had a problem with us being able to acknowledge that our idols can do bad things. The first reaction whenever an idol gets in trouble is clear the searches. Facts. Look at history. Any situation, whether it is accused rape Chris Wu, whether it is accused rape Park Yu-chen, whether it's accused domestic violence Kim Hyun-jong, you can go down the list. Anytime anything bad happens with an idol, the first reaction is clear the searches. It's never let's investigate this. It's never let's figure out the facts. It's never, maybe we need to wait to see what the statement is. It's always clear the searches. And it's because we're not looking at idols the same way we look at regular people. Like, if the report was that a man in Colorado's wife went missing and they think he might have murdered her because he was the closest to her and his behavior was kind of suspicious, we would all be like, oh yeah, he probably did it. He probably killed his wife. That makes sense. But if it was, Joy and Crush are dating, Joy went missing, Crush was the last one seen with her, there'd be a lot of people like, it couldn't have been Crush. Why would he do something like that? He's so beautiful, he's so talented. And again, not saying that these are the same things, but what I'm saying is that pretty privilege, that fame privilege, all of that makes it to where it's more unbelievable for people to believe that Lucas would be involved in something like this, because like, why would he do that? He's got Wavy and he's got NCT and he's got Super M. Why would he do something like that? But then also, why wouldn't he do something like that? Why would him being a part of Wavy and him being a part of Super M and him part of being the NCTU, why would that stop him from doing something like this? If nothing else, being a part of all this gives you every incentive in the world to do something like this. Once you have reached the pinnacle of fame, why wouldn't you take advantage of people? Why wouldn't you have them buy you nice things? Why wouldn't you have them take you nice places? Why wouldn't you use and abuse women? Because that's one of the things that we allow fame to have. We allow famous men to believe that they're entitled to this behavior because they're better than everybody else. Okay, so Meredith says, my question is, why do we hold idol celebrities to such a high standard? Aren't they people at the end of the day? Idols aren't perfect people. Okay, I don't think it's a high standard to believe that you should use people for money, or you should make people feel bad as a way to gaslight them into accepting your bad behavior. And that's not about an idol, that's about a regular person. If I was telling you about my good friend who her boyfriend is gaslighting her and tell her, oh, she's too clingy, that's the reason why I never call, we would all be like, yeah, her boyfriend sounds like a jerk. So it's not about holding idols up to a more perfect role than other people. It's about putting them up to the same expectations as people. I think anybody, if any of the allegations against Lucas are true, and it was somebody who was not an idol, and you just heard this story about this really hot guy who was using some girl for her money and then telling her she was being too clingy and using that as an excuse not to call her back or to text her back, we would be like, oh, that guy sounds like a jerk. We would. So it's not about a different standard. It's about the same standard. And I say the exact same thing in terms of like any idol who gets in a scandal that you could choose. If you found out that a girl you worked with used to be a big old bad bully and somebody new came to the office and told everybody about how she used to bully her in high school, wouldn't we all look at our coworker and be like, wow, that bitch is grimy. I'm not going to hang out with her because look what she did. So it's not different standards. It's not higher standards. It's the same. Now, the standards where idols are kind of cheated is when it comes to like dating. We expect our female idols not to date until they've been into the industry for at least 6 or 7 years, because we feel like, oh, you have to remain virginal and untouched, and if you're dating, that makes you raw and dirty. Same thing with our boys. A lot of times when our boys are brand new idols, we're like, you have to save your love for your fans. You can't have a relationship. And that's why everybody was really mad with Kang Danielle and Jihyo when they were going together, because like, how dare you? You belong to the fandoms. I think that standard is ridiculous. I absolutely believe that. But, like I said, there are other standards that, again, we would not nearly defend your regular Tom, Dick, and Harry if they had the same behavior. So I think we really need to examine that. And I think it's something that we've been talking about over and over and over again over the years, over several scandals. And we always tell ourselves that we were going to learn our lesson from the last time we let somebody skate about some bullshit. But instead, it happens again and we distribute the same behavior. So I say all that to say this again. I don't know why Lucas would apologize for something if he didn't do it. Like, that to me seems dumb. And maybe it's because I'm an American, and in America, especially if you're a celebrity, if you apologize for some behavior but you didn't do it, that's a really stupid move because you open yourself up to liability and the possibility of a lawsuit. So like, unless you are kind of caught dead to rights, you are like, you can talk to my attorney, you can talk to my record label, but I didn't do that shit and I intend to defend myself vigorously. And if you look at the history of K-pop, when labels and other people have thought that shit was not true, they have said, we are going to defend against slander and lies. The only time that labels truly try to make people apologize is when they believe that there is a fire to the smoke. A nice example of that too, if you look back at K-pop history, Tiara. When Tiara had the bullying scandal, their company did not make the girls apologize for the bullying because they knew it wasn't true. And years later, it came to bear, it wasn't true. They didn't do that shit. So their label didn't make them apologize. In this situation, apology is basically self-incriminating. I believe that as well, but I'm just saying. Another example of not wanting to apologize, even though it would make sense to apologize. The whole April bullying scandal. When you look at that, the label is willing to go to the end of the earth to defend all of April against the one girl who left and said she was bullied out of April. And it's just like, this is going to cost you attorney's fees. This is making your label look really bad. But I guess they figure we would rather defend something that we think is false and protect the images of all the other girls on the team than let this one girl cast this team into the mud. So we really do need to be thinking critically about this stuff. And again, I don't have any ill will towards Lucas. I think Lucas is just a kid who is on one of these idol groups, because at this point, I'm 42 years old. All of these kids are kids to me because like they're only a little bit older than my kids. So they're all kids to me. But yeah, I think he's just a kid who's a part of an idol group. And I think he made some stupid decisions based on kind of getting a big head about being an idol. I really and truly see the reality of him being like, I am a hot idol. I am internationally known. And because of that, I am going to take advantage. And I'm going to get bitches to buy me nice things. And I'm not going to call them back after they give me head. And that's a dick move, but there's guys with a lot less visibility and a lot less money who do the exact same shit. I could tell you about some experiences I had when I was in high school and college, very, very similar. And them niggas was
boys suck.
Broke.
And on top of it, they weren't even that cute.
I know.
I've looked in your yearbook. You're talking about that one quarterback guy. He looked like a 6 at most.
I thought it was fine.
He was bald-headed, and he had an okay face.
I look back at my life, and I'm like, prior to having kids, back when my body was right, like, I could have had a lot of great things, but at the same time, I had bad self-esteem, so I was willing to let people steamroll me. And that was the thing. That's another thing, too. When you have really high self-esteem to the point where you're like, I'm entitled to more than other people because I am so great, it's really easy to identify people with low self-esteem and take advantage of them. I'm certain that these girls that are, at least the true allegations that he might be alluding to as past behavior, I'm certain that there were people who were insecure and who were like, could be able to be gaslit because they didn't feel like they deserved anything better. Because that's what predators fucking do. The most successful predator is the predator who can identify the best prey. It's a fact. It's a law of nature. Lions, tigers, bears, if they want to get fresh meat, they should go after the injured prey instead of going after the strongest and the fittest in the pack. And so, yeah, probably he was able to take all of his supreme confidence, his fame, his advantages, and approach some girl who probably was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe a guy like Lucas wants to hang out with me. And he's like, girl, I see something special in you. I want to hang out with you. And then once the novelty wears off for him, it's very easy to be like, ugh, you're acting like a fan right now. That shit's not cool. Like, I feel uncomfortable around you now. And he's like, well, what about all the nice things I bought you and the nice places I took you? I could do that for myself. Call me when you have a house. Call me when you have a car. Like, the shit you're showing me right now doesn't impress me. Did you see my last teaser pictures? I'm dripped out. I don't need your little pennies and coins. You can have that shit back. Bye. I could totally see that happening. Not saying that that's the fact. That's what happened. Oh, allegedly. I'm just saying it's not outside the realm of possibility. So for us to be like, it couldn't possibly be our sweet baby Lucas. Hell, it could be my bias. If I heard this exact same story, but it was Choi Min Ho that they were talking about instead of Lucas, I'd be like, yes, I totally believe it because that nigga's beautiful and I would do things senselessly for him as well. Okay, so TG is saying the thing for me is that the first accusation was said to be fake because of that voice thing, but if one is real, how did this one person guess what happened to the real person? So it's just fishy to me. I'll tell you why. Because what they were accusing wasn't something that we've never heard before. How similar is this story to the Chanyeol story? Think about it for a minute. We're talking about two different people, two different types of accusations. But the person who accused Chanyeol, who we now believe it was all fake, were like, basically, he used me, he lied to me, he cheated on me, and he talked shit about the people around him. That's a common story. Like, that's such a fucking universal story. It's not, you don't have to have super specifics for stories to sound similar. I could probably tell you a story from my childhood that you all would be like, oh, a similar thing happened to me. So for somebody to put out a fake story saying, oh, he gaslit me, he told me he liked me, and then when we started to get close, he started to push me away after he got what he wanted from me. I'm sorry, but does that not sound like the story of the majority of women in the world? I feel like there's a lot of you who are watching right now who can sympathize, who, if that hasn't happened to you, it's probably happened to somebody you know, where somebody gave you all the high signs and made it seem like, oh, I'm really interested, we can really be together. And then when you give them a little taste, all of a sudden they don't know who you are. All of a sudden you're too clingy. All of a sudden they don't like the way you are, and they didn't think you were going to be like that until after you got together. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, saying stories are similar and that's fishy, it don't take much to make up a story like this. It really, really doesn't, because there are kernels of truth in a lot of things. A lot of things. But like I said before, if none of this was true, if absolutely every single thing that was put out there is fabricated, why are you apologizing? I mean, fuck. Chris Wu is now arrested for rape. Like, it was
as he should be.
Initially,
lock him up.
I'm saying initially it was like, let me bring you in for questioning, try to get this shit cleared up, and then you can go home. And then all of a sudden the police is like, oh no, wait a minute, you really did that shit. You're gonna have to be arrested for real. Well, let's remember, when all that shit started, Chris Wu and his management were like, this is a bitter bitch. She's lying. She's making this shit up. And everybody else who's coming along with it, they're just doing that because they're trying to get attention, and nothing like this ever happened. He never touched anybody. And then all of a sudden, the police are like, we think differently. Now, it has been said that the first girl that came out with stuff with Chris Wu, there was some weird money shenanigans because I guess somebody kind of like hopped in the middle and like they muddied the waters. But there's a lot of people that they got in contact with, the police did, that are like, well, no, that shit actually happened to me. So, I mean, even a broke clock is correct twice a day. But I'm not here to argue about whether he did it or not, because honestly, at this point, what are we going to do? You know, he's kind of made it to where coming back to Korea is going to be very difficult for him. He's kind of made it to where working in China is going to be kind of difficult for him. So really and truly, there's not much we can do. My question is, why did Tin get sent back to China as well? Like, I haven't seen anything that indicates that Tin did anything wrong. So I know that Hendry and Lucas were supposed to have a single together called Jalapeno, and they were going to be promoting that. I think today was supposed to be the day they were going to promote it. But like, Tin, why did Tin get sent back to China? Tin's not even from China. He's from Thailand. Like, he's a part of Wavy, but why did he get sent back? Like, that's the question I have. What did he do? But yeah, this is same song, different cast. Seriously, this whole situation is same song, different cast. We've seen this kind of situation before. Whether it turns out that he actually did the things, Tin is in China, didn't him and Yang Yang just finish promotions yesterday? According to the reports that are out there, he got sent to China with Lucas, according to the reports. Now, granted, these are, paparazzi, so it could be false. But from what I've read, they said that he got sent back too. But yeah, it's just a shame. It's a shame that, he couldn't, not 10, but it's a shame that Lucas couldn't find a way to not be a jerk. If it's true. There's a reason why psychologists have so many terms that people identify with. A lot of abuse cycles have similar patterns. Absolutely. Like, some stories are universal. What somebody said, I will not be able to give you a source for this, because I've heard this so many times in so many different iterations over the years that I really can't quote it for you. But somebody once said there's only 7 stories to be told. Like, when it comes to movies and literature, there's only 7 stories to be told, and every story is just a different iteration of the 7 same stories. And a lot of life is like that. A lot of things that happen are, the same tales over and over again, same script, different cast. I do like your comment, Jordan. Maybe Chen and Bobby should teach a class on how to be discreet. I'm saying, people get mad when idols are like, I have a wife and I'm having some kids, but I would much prefer my idol show up with a wife and kid than show up with a court case, than show up with some bullshit. I would much rather support a marriage and some children. In fact, to me, that's the happy ending. That's what I want. I want people to be with somebody who will love them forever and treat them kindly, that they can feel comfortable with and they can treat kindly in return, and for them to just, grow old and be comfortable after all the discomfort they had to go through to be my idol. When Rain got married to Kim Tae-hee, I was like, wow, you did it. You did it. So, yeah. Just, if you're gonna fuck around and get a wife. Fuck around and get a kid. Try to get a wife first if you can, though. Okay, I know this can be a stretch, but when the James Charles situation came out about him and Tati, he apologized, and like a couple weeks later, he showed text messages that said what she said was fake. Okay, so the James Charles situation, what he said was fake was not the whole thing. He said what was fake were some of the things that she said that happened, but that other things actually did happen. And that's why he apologized initially. So he said that he was apologizing to her because he felt like he had damaged their friendship, and he felt like he had betrayed their friendship, and he was apologizing for that. In his first apology, he didn't apologize for preying on young boys. But also, if we're going to talk about James Charles, let's talk about the fact that in recent months, he has been outed for, again, trying to groom young boys. Going through TikTok like it's a personal dating service and reaching out to young boys in the DM talking about, hey, do you want a friend? So even the behavior that he was accused of by Tati, if that situation wasn't exactly the way she told it, the fact of the matter is James Charles is still a pariah right now because he's been caught jumping in the DMs of teenagers recently, allegedly. So again, sometimes where there is smoke, there is fire. So I really wouldn't take him as a good example of somebody apologizing for things they didn't do. I think some of the Lucas stuff is real from the apology, but we won't know what. And I agree with that, Justin. I do think it's going to be very difficult for us to pin down what exactly he did, because he may apologize for his past behavior, but he's not going to say, and this is exactly what I'm apologizing for. I'm sorry to Susie because I took those Gucci loafers when I wasn't really trying to be with you. Okay, so Sarah says, the day I heard from a Korean fan in 2012 that Big Bang was known for sleeping with fans, the idea of the perfect idol was dissolved for me. Man, I'm from the US, and groupie culture is like so iconic in the US that the idea of stars not sleeping with fans seems fucking weird. Like, the only reason why a star shouldn't be sleeping with fans is because they're sleeping with other celebrities.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it goes here in America. Next.
People usually... Well, I guess celebrities, if they don't get with celebrities, they do sort of get with fans.
Yeah, like, it's just, this is the circle of celebrity.
Like, Ariana, she got with, what's his face, Dalton. And even though, like, he might not have been the biggest Ariana Grande stan, I feel like he's at least heard of Ariana Grande. He's like, oh, I like her.
Also,
She's
he
cute.
was a celebrity real estate broker.
True.
Like, the man had money. Like, the people that stars go for are people with money,
They don't
people
be
with
eating good.
fame, or fucking groupies. Like, that's the way it works here in America. Um, and I can't see how Lucas can come back from this. I kind of feel like the apology kind of made it worse for him. It probably did. It probably did. So, yeah. Sad days. Sad days. I mean, it'd be different if he was an American celebrity. Not all of them crazy for myself, not all of them. If he was a celebrity in America, this shit would fly completely under the radar. This would be like something for the gossip rags and people would like talk about it and he might put out a little like Instagram apology and then be right back at it. Like if Lucas was one of the kids from one of these TikTok houses and some girl was like, he was mean to me and he used me so that I could buy him some Air Force Ones and a steakhouse dinner, people would be like, girl, go away. Because that's celebrity culture is very different here than it is there. However, because celebrity culture is so different, even Lucas's behavior at the end of the day really should be judged for recklessness. Because if his past behavior is that he was gaslighting girls or, you know, letting girls buy him nice things when he really wasn't returning their affection, which again, it's not illegal behavior, but it's not great behavior. I would say this. You've been a part of SM too long and have been too much a part of like the celebrity grooming machine for you to believe that this behavior was not going to somehow make its way into the public. Like, that's the thing. I know a lot of entertainment companies, when you sign up as a trainee, they make you wipe your social media clean. They give you the rules down pat, like don't get involved with nobody, don't take no nasty pictures with nobody, don't have no social media that we can't monitor. Like there's a lot of stuff that entertainment companies do now that they didn't even used to do 10 years ago because social media has been the downfall of so many celebrities. Hell, social media is what took Jay Park out of 2 p.m. So it is a big deal. So at that point, it would be really wild and reckless of him to decide to use somebody because, I mean, hell, just look at fucking, was Taeyong, the leader of NCT. Do you remember before they debuted and he got in trouble for being a photo card scammer? Yeah, she did. Sojin from Giotto got kicked out recently. Yes, one girl said Lucas was too dumb to gaslight and didn't have the mental capacity to be able to do it. I'll say the truth about it. I'm not gonna get into anything because I don't want to start a cheat. But of course, yeah, like that was the whole thing. Like I remember when they were getting ready to like get NCT out there, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, not the scammer!" And they were like, "Yeah, he was on eBay selling photo cards." And then when people would want to get the photo cards in the mail, they were either fakes or it was like he wouldn't send them anything, and then he would yell at me like, "Fuck you, I do what I want." Like that shit took forever to make its way through the rounds for him to have any kind of a good image. And even then, there were some people who were like, "Oh, also he was a school bully." So like you would think just even hearing about what happened to somebody that's on his team, he'd be like, "Ooh, I better keep my nose clean because nothing you do in the darkness is going to stay in the darkness." Because I feel just like what you said, that everyone, one or most, have a situation with a guy that used you in America. I feel like people are so used to this behavior in America that maybe not as much as in Korea. Oh no, oh no. TG, I'm not sure if you're Korean or not, so I'm not going to speak on your personal experience, but men behaving badly is not just an American situation. That is literally an around the world situation. In fact, there was this one video I saw, and it was like such a random ass video that I remember thinking, how in the hell did this get on my like Twitter recommends or my YouTube recommends? It was a video of a girl, and it was a Korean video, and it was this company that does like house cleaning, and they were doing cleaning for this girl who had depression, and she had depression because her boyfriend had gaslit her, and like he had told her all these things and then like totally broke her heart and lied and stole and all this other stuff. And they went into her house to clean her house, and I remember thinking like, how did this girl get this apartment so messy when this apartment is like maybe 300 square feet? Like, it was a tiny ass apartment. But anyway, I say all that to say, like, men are fucking men, man. It's not about, oh, this society won't let people do that. It's about whether or not that society says that that kind of behavior is wrong. The behavior can happen, but sometimes behavior is not seen as wrong. It's just like in cultures where young women date older men. In some cultures, depending on your age, it's not seen as a big deal. In America, we still kind of frown upon large age gaps, but if you're 18 and over, legally, there's no problem. But if we had a 14-year-old dating a 30-year-old man, everybody and their grandmother would be up in arms and say, this is some bullshit, how could you let this happen? But there have been countries in Asia, like the Philippines, Japan, where the age limits were really low, and it wasn't seen as a problem because that wasn't the standard in that country. The behavior still happened, but the way society judged that behavior is very different. So that's why I say, like, I'm not going to say Korea doesn't have these things. I'm going to say that they probably may be framed differently in different countries. It's sad to say, but the next wavy album and tour was probably a make or break it moment for them too. LMAO, not a photo card scammer, and to know that later on his face would be on a photo card, that is ironic. NCT have like way too many members to not have some major scandals down the line. SM is getting sloppy with these scandal cover-ups as it is. True as the culture. NCT has too many men for all of them to be angels. I knew this day was gonna come. This has nothing to do with this, but I see many people who say Taeyang is autistic, and it low-key bothers me as someone with autism. I wonder why they would say that. I mean, if he is autistic, you know, that's a personal disability, and we don't have to know about that in terms of like, he doesn't have to disclose that to us. But if he does have autism and it's something that he's dealing with, I think, and this is just something I talked about this when I was in a chat room for a podcast. And because there's this one drama that Mason and I reviewed. You can check out Mason's channel to listen to our review. But Mason and I watched History 4, which is a terrible show. I don't ever recommend it. But there's a character in the show who is the worst character of any show I've ever watched. This character, just to give you a breakdown, rapes his brother. It's his stepbrother, but he rapes his brother, stalks his brother, threatens to kill himself to get his brother to talk to him, and then after that had recorded the rape of his brother and showed the video to the father. And the whole thing was, when people were defending the character, like, well, the character's autistic, so he doesn't know that his behavior is wrong, therefore he's doing things that he sees as romantic, but because he's autistic, he doesn't get the social cues. And that's such a fucking cop-out. And I'm not saying that as a diss to people with autism, but like, I know people with autism who struggle with social cues, but they try very hard every day to be better, and they ask for help, and they try very hard to be able to start to learn social cues and try very hard to try to be better. And so for people to act like, well, if you have autism, you're not expected to be able to do anything correctly because you're autistic, and it's unfair for anybody to believe that you can possibly learn how to operate in society, I think that's really bullshit. So, I mean, just saying. I think that the way that people have now used autism as an excuse for like villainy or bad behavior, that's not cool. That's not cool. New member announced for a trainee A called JJ, who is half American, half Japanese. His personal Instagram was taken down the day before he was announced on official trainee A account. Of course, his personal Instagram would be taken down because when you become a trainee, you belong to the company now. I would have no issue with it, and I'd actually feel included because there's no idol I know of that has autism. They say he acts autistic. That bothers me. How can one act autistic? I agree. I think that's really bogus. It's not like, oh, because maybe you have certain body motions and maybe you have certain soothing techniques that, oh, that's evidence of your autism. It's like, I'm sorry, no, that's not what that means. Unless I had told someone, they wouldn't know I was autistic. And people always tell me I fake it. I'm literally diagnosed. No, I totally agree with you. Having diagnosis doesn't defend your actions. There was Lucas bisexual rumor articles too. Someone really got it out for him. Okay, so I saw a Twitter thread. I'm not saying this is true. I saw a Twitter thread where somebody was like, "Oh, uh, the reason why all this is coming out is because Chinese companies are trying to dig up dirt and pay people to sabotage Wavy because they don't want Wavy to succeed in China." Which I don't have anybody in China that I know who could tell me this, but I feel like Wavy is more popular outside of China than they are in China. And so it seems like somebody being like, oh, they're too much competition. That seems weird. Do they think he's associated with Chris Wu? No, I don't think so. But I just, like, I could see somebody maybe wanting to be the Chinese entertainment industry is very different than any other entertainment industry in the world. And I say that because, like, there's this boys, it's not a boys love, it's a bromance, because China doesn't allow boys love, because China doesn't allow anything gay. There's this bromance called Word of Honor, and one of the actors on that show is super duper popular, and he has recently been banned from Chinese entertainment completely. And when I say completely, I mean he had a song on the soundtrack that got removed from the internet. Like, he has been banned. Apparently there is a law in China that says if you violate certain, like, social laws, that you cannot be allowed on television, on the radio, nothing. Like, your career is fucking over. Well, apparently what happened is that he went to Japan and went to some shrine in Japan and took pictures and posted them on the internet. And the shrine is like a shrine to World War II veterans, something like that. It's a famous shrine. But for those of you who aren't aware of history, the Chinese have very strong negative feelings for Japan. And the strong negative feelings come from Japan's invasion of China during World War II. Very specific incidents would be the Nanking Massacre. If you want to read about that on Wikipedia in history, there's some really graphic stuff from that time. And so when this kid got caught being photographed at this shrine, Chinese internet was like, the disrespect, and it was over. It was over. And China has this thing, and I don't know the name of it now, but you can look it up. China has this, like, social currency going on right now, and they announced it. I want to say it's been a couple of years. It's probably been a couple of years since they announced it. But the thing that they have is, like, you can have your life limited by your social activity. So if you go on Facebook and you join a Facebook group that talks bad about the government, you can be denied access to hotels. You can be denied access to buying your own vehicle. You can be denied jobs. And anybody who's a close relative or friend of yours, if they keep an association with you or, like, try to remain friendly with you, they can then have their chances of getting jobs, promotions, cars, anything vastly decreased because of your social standing. Which, that shit sounds like something out of, like, a wild YA movie. It sounds like some Black Mirror shit, but it's the truth. So if you are living in China and you're suspected of having anti-communist sympathies, then you can easily find yourself unable to get a job, unable to maintain housing, unable to get married, unable to live the life that any other average person could live because of your social activity. That's wild. That's fucking wild. If you get caught in China typing Winnie the Pooh on any social media platform, easily your social ranking can go down because the president of China doesn't want anybody to talk about Winnie the Pooh because he was accused of looking like Winnie the Pooh and he finds it offensive that people would make fun of him in that way. So, yeah, Winnie the Pooh has been banned from Chinese social media. That's fucking wild. So, let's see here. So Lucas is getting a lot of deals, not wavy. Chinese fans already closed Lucas' bar down. He's definitely lost fans in China. Chinese fans seem to be taking the allegations they're more serious than Western fans. Some Chinese laws sound dystopian. They are. I'm low-key traumatized after the Woojin situation because now after that, even before that with Tiara, I'm so careful with these rumors. And you're right about that, TG. In fact, I mentioned Tiara about the fact that they never apologized because they didn't do anything. And Woojin was very much the same. When Woojin got accused of all this, he's like, this shit's fake, this isn't real, I'm trying to clear my name. And he did all that. And, you know, unfortunately, some people, when you put the first rumor out there, that has the most impact, and trying to pull back the effects of such a damaging rumor is almost impossible. Almost impossible. What's wrong with Winnie the Pooh? Terrifying. Winnie the Pooh's cute. I've learned to wait until we have official information to make my own conclusion, i.e. the whole Wano situation. The Wano situation was also very interesting too, because the Wano situation, he apologized, but he didn't apologize for doing drugs. He apologized for the fact that, like, his friend felt like he did them dirty on the money, right? I still see Woojin's videos with bad dislike ratios. So he felt like he needed to apologize because he felt like he did his friend dirty with the money. And so it's just like, that situation was rough. But Wano has managed to carve out a career. You know, it helped him tremendously about the fact that when they investigated the marijuana allegations, the police said there was no evidence to support any charges. So that helped him out tremendously. But yeah, I mean, it takes one bad word and you can tear people's world apart. But again, like with Tiara and like with Woojin, they didn't apologize for their behavior. And like, I mean, I don't want to keep harping on that, but it needs to be said, the fact that he apologized, even if it wasn't to every single thing that he was accused of, because obviously every single thing is not true, there's some kernel of truth there. And that, whatever that kernel of truth is, he knows that that was damaging enough. And that's unfortunate. I hate that for him. But also, I wish that he wouldn't make those kinds of mistakes. I wish that he'll learn from that and try to live a much safer life. I'll put it that way, a safer life. But yeah, I felt like I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this because it's big news. It calls into question the future of Super M for sure, because like the Chinese members don't have to do military service, whereas Becken is in the military, Taemin is in the military, so they're not going to be able to promote with Super M. And, you know, Kai's going to have to go to the military soon, so soon he won't be able to promote with Super M. Like, it's a lot of holes. I think Super M is done. I mean, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. I think Super M is done. Denzel. Finito. Adioso. So, yeah. I do hope that any girl, woman that feels slighted will find comfort in the fact that there are a lot of other women who have gone through that same experience and they sympathize. I really and truly hope that if they lost anything financially, that they gain it back. I really and truly hope that if Lucas is sincere about apologizing for past behavior, that he'll learn from past behavior. But most importantly, I really hope that nobody else's face gets caught up in some bullshit. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It is so tough going through your fave being caught up in some bullshit. Nobody wants it, and I sincerely wish for all of you watching that your fave is never caught up in some bullshit, because it's horrible to deal with. Even if you are the most open-minded, the most feminist person, the most equity-minded person, when your faith gets caught up in some bullshit, that shit hurts. Even if you are like, I want to think of victims first, like, it just still hurts. So I hope none of y'all have to go through that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. And I appreciate you guys being here. And I really and sincerely hope that you all have better days. If you're a Shawwalk, he's got a solo coming out, so yay. Lisa's got a single coming out, so yay. Ehai's got an album coming out, so yay. There's lots of good things out there in the world. Concentrate on the good things. Eat something delicious. Bye.